There are three types of styles in Civil 3D: object styles, label styles, and table styles. Object styles control the display of your Civil 3D objects, which include points, surfaces, parcels, alignments, and profiles, among others. In the Toolspace Settings tab, open a very basic style under Sample Lines. When you expand Sample Lines, the Sample Line Styles and Label Styles folder appears. Sample lines are simply the lines in the plan view that represent the location of the cross sections that you have sampled along an alignment. Expand the Sample Lines Styles folder. Right-click the road Sample Lines Style and select Edit. The Sample Line Style dialog box has three tabs in it: Information, Display, and Summary. Realize that every object has at least these three tabs. Some styles may have more, but there will always be at least these three tabs. On the Information tab, you can name the style and give it a description. You can also find out who created it and who modified it last, as well as the date when the style was created and last modified. On the Display tab, in the Component Display pane, is a list of all the components of this particular object. For sample lines, this is a very simple list. It only has lines and vertices. You can control the visibility of all these components by toggling on and off the light bulb in the visibility column. The layer column allows you the option to select the layer that the individual components will be placed on. To change that layer, select the current layer name, and the layer selection dialog box appears. A list of all the layers in the drawing is in the layer selection dialog box. If the layer you want is not here, you can select New to create a new layer. You also have the option to select Layer 0 as a layer for the individual components. Think of the Civil 3D objects as being similar to blocks. Sometimes when you create blocks, you want to put all of the pieces of that block on Layer 0 so that it utilizes the layer that the block is inserted on. Another approach is to place all the individual pieces of the block on different layers so you have nested layers within that block. Assigning layers here to these components is nesting layers inside of this style. So if you're looking for layer control over your Civil 3D objects, then you place the style components that you want controlled by the layer that the object is placed on to Layer 0. Be careful, however, as it is not always a good idea to place every component on Layer 0. Also, in the component display, there are additional columns to control the color of the object, the line type of each component of the object, the LT scale, the line weight, and the plot style. These can be configured individually for each object within the block. Above the component display pane is the view direction, which is currently set to plan. Here, you can have different settings for different view directions. For example, select Model. In this case, you can see that both columns are turned off in the model view. Switch back to plan view. You can see that just the lines are turned on. So in plan view, you'd see the sample lines, but if you rotated the object in 3D orbit or in the object viewer, the sample lines would disappear in the three-dimensional view. Finally, in the sample line style dialog is the summary tab, which shows a summary of everything you just set up within the style. Click Cancel. To look at a more complex style, back in the Toolspace Settings tab, scroll up to Surfaces. Expand Surface Styles and click on e.g. 1 foot and 5 foot style. The upper right orange chevron symbol next to this style indicates that this style is currently in use by some object or command within the drawing. Right-click the object style and select Edit. In the Surface Style dialog box are the same Information, Display, and Summary tabs. But this time, there are also a number of additional command tabs that configure different parts of the surface. For example, in the Contours tab, you can set the contour interval and smoothing factors. On the Display tab is a much larger list of components because the surface is a much more complex object. In the Components display under Component Type, you can choose between points, triangles, major contours, minor contours, and so on. There are also different view directions for the surface: Plan, Model, and Section. For example, in plan view, you might want to show the major and minor contours, but in model view, when the surface is rotated in 3D orbit or in an object viewer, you might want to turn the contours off and only show triangles, which can be shaded or rendered. And in section view, there's only one component, which is a line, for the surface going through the section. Click the Summary tab, and you can see that this tab also has much more information. Again, because this is a much more complex style with many details that can be configured for each of these different components. It is important to remember that all object styles will have a minimum of 3 tabs: Information, Display, and Summary. The Display tab controls which parts of the objects are divisible within the drawing and how they are displayed. Civil 3D gives you the ability to easily set up styles, and it gives you the choice whether to maintain layer control or style control.